How's it going, guys? Triple D here. This is my first video. I'm pretty excited to start up this new channel and give you guys some tips. I figured, instead of my first video showing off prints that I've done, or at least things I've been able to accomplish with one machine and on a budget, I figured I'd show you guys, something, maybe some tips or tricks that I've learned over the past week of scouring YouTube and tutorials and just doing a little bit of play around, especially on some of these things like structures, which unfortunately in other videos, at least that I've watched, they've shown you how to use them and how to do them properly, which I do appreciate that, but they don't really tell you that the importance of them, or that you really want to minimize as much structure as possible if you need it. Or support as possible, I'm sorry. And so I'm just going to do a little tip video on what I've kind of figured out on how to do my supports, my fails, and the way that I've kind of figured out what works for me. On this particular model, there is an issue with it. Now, I am using Simplify 3D. I'm going to try to have a Cura video about it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't show as much detail as I need with Simplify 3D, so I would really recommend, biting the bullet and just trying to get Simplify 3D if you can, or hopefully you're able to take these settings or do the same thing in your own program. I'm going to have to learn Blender and other things like that. I'm going to try to help you guys out, but so far this has been the easiest way for me to figure out how to 3D print, so it's been very helpful. Anyways, with this model, as you see, I do have the support on this side out far, and this one's up close. The reason being is there's actually, I don't know if there's a mesh issue, but for some reason it wants to print, and I'll have to show you here really quick. It wants to print this layer. We're gonna get up close here. As you see, Simplify 3D just shows, it's down to the exact line precision, and Cura doesn't do this, so this helps me see like when a model is gonna be bad. Now, what I try to do with my supports, just a little inclusion here, is to not make them connected. Now, hopefully, when you do print this, these won't be connected here. As you see, there's a little bit of gap on this side. There's definitely a huge gap. That's why I did this side like that, and there's only a little bit of actual connection here. Now, we'll talk about the bottom later, as I do have, let's turn off travel moves really quick. We'll talk about the bottom later, as that's the reason why I actually didn't print this model, because I'm having issues with the bottom. Now, this is the only model I've ever had this issue with, and I'm not sure what it is. I've changed my infill, I've tried changing layers and stuff like that, and it just every time it wants to do this type of zigzag. I'm not sure if this is like a mesh issue or whatever, if this model's old, so I might have to figure out a different base, because these are two separate models together. Anyway, so when we get up here, as you see this line right here, for some reason it wants to print this line across here, and as you see, this one's more of a full line down across, where this one only wants to print to right here. So I had to put the support as close as possible. Now, you could probably rework this on a different model, but my best suggestion would be to keep this as far out, keep the infill as low as possible, so you're not on your model but on your support. And this is if you don't have support material. I said on a budget. I don't have a dual extrusion printer, and I don't have separate filament for my support, so I have to do the same plastic. And when you're doing plastic on plastic, there's still some sort of a connection, so you're gonna have a distortion on any model you do, no matter what you do. Like, there's just gonna be a distortion. So the best way to minimize that is these little settings that I've been able to kind of play around with. I learned some things from some forums and Facebook and stuff like that, and so I have had some help from other people, but with some tinkering I've tried to figure it out. Now, for this top portion, I was first printing my models without this kind of dense layer on top, and I really wanted this. I didn't know how to activate it, and that's actually in here. So you might be able to find this in any other program, but that's actually your dense layers, and all you got to do is change that to 1. If you see, if I change it to 0 really quick, it's actually not going to put a layer on the top portion you see it's just going to go all the way up. And you can do this, but then you might have stringing, especially in the middle here. I'm sure my printer can handle it, but I definitely want it activated normally to have a dense layer, just so that in case it's supporting it. So I recommend changing that to 1. And you want to tinker with this infill percentage. It's just based on basically how big you're making your support, and how much of it, and how long, or whatever it is, whatever you're doing to the support. This is where it all matters. So I mean, like, if you have a ton of support underneath a certain section, you won't need a ton of infill, and that's just common sense, because there's a lot of support there already. If you put a lot of infill in the support, then it's going to be extremely hard to take off. And like I said, all you need is that dense layer on the top. So messing around with this really does help. I've noticed that this model, especially with my small supports, needs the 20%, but this can handle it, and should be able to come out okay. Now you could probably tinker with this model a little bit more. I haven't printed it because of the base reason. But let's look at a model that I actually did print, and unfortunately I wish I would have left the supports on. I didn't know I was going to do this video, and I'm just kind of like, you know what, the model came out really good, and the supports came out really good, so I figured, like, I'm going to make a video. I'm like, well, damn, I should have left the supports on, but that's okay. So I'm going to show you in Simplify 3D, and then I'll have some pictures or videos of the model at the end of the video that you can see it all done up and what I actually do. Let me go through the settings really quick here, so you can see the model of or the support structures, just so you can see. I know this isn't it, but I usually have it at 2 millimeters, and then this doesn't really matter. Now when you generate automatic supports, it's gonna throw them everywhere. You don't need them, and so I don't like to do that, and so I don't really want them there, and so I like to do my own custom ones. And then what you can do is just set this to a certain parameter, be it 4 millimeters, and then you can add your own support structures. As you see, I think I have mine around 2 or 1.5 on this model. Yeah, they're definitely around 1.5. So obviously this is gonna again go based on the model and how you're doing your infill, but these are things that you can tinker with, you can play around with. Look how it does. If you add this one right here to the model itself, you can look. This is why I love Simplify 3D. You can look how much it's doing, and as you can see, it doesn't really need all of that support over here. So I can take that structure out. I don't need it. There's no reason. It's not supporting anything. So I like that feature. Anyways, let's move on to a different model that I actually printed for a family member. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I always like to look, because on mine I have a Bowden setup, so it's starting to add a line all the way up, and I don't know if that's a layering problem. I might need to add, not layering, but thickness of the walls. So that's what someone told me, at least, but I think it's more of a start-stop issue, and I could play with the coasting settings. I'm not sure how much that would affect it. I haven't really gone too much into that yet. I still need to. I've gone through a lot of settings. I have a lot of settings that are in here that I've had to set up, and I've used Nuri's profile. I can put a link to that just as a base structure, and then just kind of edited from there. Especially on this one, I did change the retraction speed and the layer height to 1, so we'll do that here just to represent this. So on this model specifically that I printed, I changed this to 45 because I wanted everything to kind of slow down, just make sure I took care of everything. I'm trying to take care of my printer. It's not the most expensive, and so I don't really want it to go too fast or ruin anything. I'm just trying to take everything so I can wait. The biggest thing is I'll wait. I don't want to break it. But this is what I was talking about. So if you have this set up optimized start points for fastest print speed, basically you might have issues where there's like little bubbles, they look like, because it has to stop at that section. Now again, I don't know if it's going to act, if you put coasting on, if that'll help, but I changed mine here and I set it to what my dimensions were, which was I believe 210, or yeah, I think I put it, no 205. I think my dimensions were 205, but I set it at 205 or 210. I can't remember. I'll have to look again. Unfortunately I didn't save it. But so that would print at like the back corner of the model. Now this is another important thing that I was going to talk about, is your viewpoint. Because I just set that, it's going to set it along the y-axis, which is right here, and it's going to put it at x0. Now I can change the x to the middle, which I probably should have done, which would be about 105 for me. depending on your print bed. Obviously, you just take half the dimension of what it is. So that will, obviously be 105 or whatever. But so Y0 would be right here, which is in this back corner, which would have been right along his face. And I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want it to wreck the model, so I kind of had it more on to his back. And what you do basically is you want to see where your front is, and obviously I'm at the front. This is always the front, because when it throws a model in here, you might be like, oh, okay, this is the front. No, you got to make sure. And so usually just change the Z-axis, and there we go. Get him to the front. Obviously I knew that coordinate already, but to put him in the front, little 90-degree turn, and he should be center. So the start point will be printed back here. But anyways, for structures, I noticed that it printed his finger right here, this one. It printed it a little bit bad, but I don't think adding support is going to help. And the reason being is because I think it's going to make the model more distorted if you try to add support for the finger, because then you're going to be covering this finger, because this finger printed good, this one did. All the rest was just this one I had a little bit of trouble with. But I think you could probably sand that down yourself way more easily than trying to add support and ruining part of the model. The part that did need support was right here, which I'm going to add that for you. And then you just, honestly, when you check out a model, you just want to look at it. Things like this that have the upward, most printers can do this. Especially, if you don't have Simplify 3D to check it, which you can just do an easy check here with actually processing it and seeing what it's going to print. And so I set the same settings as what I printed. Should be, let's see, okay. It shows each individual line, which is really, really nice, and I do appreciate that in this program. But anyways, when you're looking at a model and you're just kind of looking at, I know Cura's decent at showing this. It doesn't show each line, but it kind of will. As you see parts right here, it's not going to be able to print a floating part, and so you really want to go slow when you're doing this and checking your prints to make sure that nothing is floating. And so there's a portion right here, I believe, where is it at, that I put support. So again, you just want to look for anything that's floating in the air that doesn't look like it's going to print. And again, right here where it's kind of, just kind of shoots out, I'm going to slow it down. It's probably going to need support just because it's kind of hanging. I think there's a portion that it kind of tries to print in midair. Let me see. Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. You might be able to get away with that, but I put support there because I was able to actually print it off the bed itself. I was able to miss the model completely and just print it off the bed for the support. I think it might have, it actually missed this. It did work, like I told you earlier. Completely missed the tail when I added the support. So let's try adding support really quick, and let me show you what I did to basically make the model printable off just a tiny bit of support. I'm sorry about that, guys. Just a tiny bit of support and still print pretty optimal quality. At least for my first couple prints. I mean, I'm probably about 6 or 7 prints in now, and so I'm already figuring out things quickly, which is nice. Anyway, so I think I did 3mm support. Now again, this isn't gonna matter too much as long as you do them correctly. What I do is I kind of just like to get a good angle on it. So for this one, I had to come down here because I wanted to try to miss as much of this as I could and kind of put it more on the tail, which I was okay with, which actually came out decent. So you come here, I think I put one right here and one right here as well. And then for this portion, I just threw one right there and right there. And so again, you just play around with it and just look around. If it wasn't accurate, like you see, I placed it wrong. So literally, you just go back in here, remove, quick and easy. Now I have to set this setting up better. I have to resave my profile to make sure it isn't set at 99 every time, but that's okay. So we're just gonna add them this way. That's a better angle at it, actually. Let's make sure that's, you know what? Again, you just want to play around with it. Get the best angle that you can. So I'm trying to keep it again like I did earlier. Maybe like that. Okay. And then we're gonna change our support infill. I think I might have had it at 15%. I think that's normal. Let's check it really quick. This model is going to take a little while to parse and things like that, as it is very detailed. It came out really nice. It's a little bit smaller than I thought, but again, I don't have the biggest setup, so not bad at all. And you see the very bottom, it's just missing the tail, and it will miss depending on how accurate your printer is, especially if you use it at 0.1. It will definitely miss that tail, which is really nice. So it's going to come up, and we have the dense layers, so yep, it's going to sit on that, which will be fine. I think I will be able to print those. And boop, right, yep, that's perfect. That's honestly, this is exactly how I had it. Right on that spot. When we come over here, as you see, it's going to print right on top. Perfect. Look at that. I didn't do this as good last time. So, as you see, you might be able to get rid of one pillar right here in this outer edge. And we'll check because it gets a little close right here. You want to stay away from a connection. You really want to look at these layers to make sure that they're not intertwined here, because I've had models where they intertwine themselves. It can be intertwined up here, which is fine because you can get it out later, as long as it's not too bad. Now, see, it's not too bad at all. And it will honestly probably miss. Let's see, is there one layer in there? No, I don't think so. Ooh, nope, it misses. I think we're good. I think you'd be able to print this just fine without any distortion on the side of the model, and just on top of the tail, which won't be too bad. And mine came out just fine. I don't really notice it on top of the tail. But yeah, this model is perfectly printable. Again, other than the hand here, which I really want to look at, I guess how it printed it. So I did end up going to sleep. Oh yeah, right here. Right there. Oh, yeah. You see, it's kind of in the air right there. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's hard to tell. There you go. It's probably a better angle. There you go. Just a little bit, just by a hair. So you might be able to add a tiny support right here, maybe like a little 1mm one that you could cut out later. So it was this finger. It wasn't this one. It was this finger. I'm sorry. That prints in the ear. Alright guys, I do appreciate it. If you could please like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. It would help the channel out and would make me want to do more of these types of videos, especially show off my prints and continue making my channel what it could be. Alright y'all.